welcome to Scrappin with Sheri. As you've grown accustomed to, I am going off the rails again for our Wacky Wednesday, but that's really because this week is Easter week. I had a couple of ideas that I had been saving to look at a later date and finally got a chance to play with them. So this idea came from a card making blog that I follow, and this is called a fractured card. And I just adapted it to make it a scrapbook page, but I like the effect of it. So to do this particular page, I'm just going to talk you through it real quick, but then I'm going to do a different design using this fractured idea. So I used this pattern from the Gemstones Custom Cutting System collection. It's got these 3 patterns in it. And I used the inside of this with the red blade initially. And I cut this pattern out, and then I just cut these strips of paper to do all these outside edges. Now, my background is this blue right here. And I cut the strips, laid them down, and then I cut the pieces to go underneath the strips. There's some mess-ups here and there, but I like the effect of that. And after I finished it all, I did this outside frame to put over it to make it look a little more finished. So I don't really know what I'm going to use this for. I just thought it was really pretty. But I wanted to do one for Easter. So what you need to do this, and I'm going to do this one a little bit differently. I'm not going to use the hexagon on this one because I want this to be a page that I can use a couple of pictures on. I'm using this pattern's paper because I like both sides of it. I have pulled some navy and then a bigger navy as well. And the navy is going to be my inside piece that I'm going to start the fracturing off of. This pattern is going to be what I finish it off on the outside edges with. This part will be my frame and my lines. And this white piece you see laying here is going to be my page I build it all on. So let me start first by making the frame out of this full sheet of 12 by 12. Now my frame is a 1/2 inch all the way around. So I'm going to slide my paper to the top here and to the 1/2 inch line. And I could put my clips on there, and maybe I need to do that to make sure that I get these all even. I'm just pulling my 2 little binder clips. And I'm going to line my cutting housing up at the 1/2 inch line, which is right there. Which means I need a little clip right here. And it's hard to get that little clip right there. Even though this is a tiny clip, it's not really going to fit well right there. Let's see if we can get a 1/2 inch. We probably can't even get it. It's going to be pretty close. And then down here, I would need to go to 11.5, but I'm going to take it in just a touch, just so it lines up with this one here. So I'm putting that at the 11.5. Whoop. I don't need to put it at 11.5. I need to put it at about a 12.5 because I need the white line to line up at that 11.5 mark. All right, there's my 11.5 and just a touch just to work out with that. All right, so I've got my clips on there. I'm going to put my paper at the 1/2 inch mark every time. And I'm going to start it at the top, y'all. And I forget that all the time because I'm so used to pulling at the bottom. And all I'm doing is cutting clip to clip, starting at the 1/2 inch mark every time at the top. And I say these things to remind myself, not to remind you. So I was thinking about Easter and just all the festivities coming up. We've got a lot of different things going on this week. Our kids are grown, so we don't really have an egg hunt per se, but I'm sure my granddaughter will be participating in one. So for today's video and for Saturday's video, I'll be showing a couple of different Easter ideas. The one on Saturday, you are going to not want to miss. It will be a sketch from the book, a little out of order, but it's a really cute one. All right, so that's going to be our frame. That's going to go around the outside when we're all finished. And then I'm going to go back, take my clips off. I'm going to go back now, and I'm going to cut several 1/4 inch strips. Now, here's my cutting line, but I'm going to cut on this. I'm going to slide my paper to the outside edge of that gray mat, and I'm just going to cut several strips here. For this one, I won't need near as many as I did for the first one, because the first one took a lot of different directions. We'll see how this one goes. And you can do this with a lot of different shapes, a lot of different patterns. I was trying really hard to conserve my paper, and we'll see how that goes. The paper that I'm using with the blue actually matches my Easter dress that I'm wearing next Sunday, I hope. So that's why I chose it. It's from the Something Blue collection, which was kind of our wedding-y collection, but I just thought it was beautiful, and I love both sides of it. So let's put our centerpiece on. Now, you remember in the first one, my center was the hexagon. This one, I chose to do a 6.5 by 8.5. Actually, I think it's 6 1/4 by 8.5, because I wanted to be able to get 2 vertical pictures for a center on this, or to crop down some pictures to put on here. So I made this one a little bit bigger. I'm not sure the effect is going to be as pretty, but we're going to give it a shot. Now I'm going to angle this because that's going to give us this fractured look. And I think I'm going to slide it to the top. Yeah, let's center it. Let's just do it centered and see what we get. And I'm going to be using my repositionable tape for this. And I discovered on the first one that using the repositionable is really helpful, because when it's all said and done, you're going to have to move some things around. I can almost guarantee it. We're going to stick our centerpiece in. And then I am going to go ahead and stick some of these lines on here to make the fractures. And in doing that, because my colors are the same, all I'm going to do is line them up right along that outside edge of that. And yes, they're going to go off the top and the sides, and that's okay, because we're going to cut those in a few minutes. And I'm putting a pretty good amount of this repositionable tape on here. I want to make sure that all of this sticks well. That one is not quite long enough, but you know what? We'll just add a little bit more to the bottom. I'm just going to tear that off and add it on. This is another great scrap page, I think. You could use a lot of different things to do this. I think it's a fun page. I think it's, I like the effect of it when it's finished. I think it's really pretty. And here again, we're going to have just a little edge that's going to be a pieced part. When I did the first one, I actually did it with leftover pieces I just had laying around from our National Scrapbook Day collection. And I was really pleased with the effect of it when it was all said and done. I like it when you try something new and all of a sudden you think, oh, that's really good. And I get a lot of really good ideas from quilt makers and from card makers. Okay, so we're almost through with all the fracturing. This one's going to be a little more square than the one I did before. But I really wanted to try a new one on this just to see how it looked without copying the one I had done before. I'm going to grab my scissors, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut these pieces off. I could do this with my 12-inch trimmer too, but these are really small little edges and easy enough to get with your scissors. Now let's go back in and fill in all the pretty colors. Now I don't really have any more edges that I would want to, any more places I would want to fracture. So I think we're good on the fracturing, but let's add our colors. So to me, the coloring part was probably the hardest part of it. And I'm going to be using a pencil and the paper that I've chosen here. Now, the one thing I'm looking at right off the bat, I've got a little bit of edge right there that's showing wrong. The one thing I'm looking at is I really want this big area right here to be this flower. So what I'm doing is I'm just laying my paper down and I'm just making a good pencil line here. And I'm kind of making it in the middle of where that blue falls, because I want these to show up and I want this blue to end up in the middle of that. Now I'm going to lay this back down on my full page, and then I'm just going to kind of feel with my hands where that falls. Right here we've got a corner, and I can feel that where I've placed those little strips. Okay, I'm just making sure I've got my corners covered. So we're going to cut from here to here, across to my pencil line over here, which is really hard to see in the midst of all of these flowers, and then cut down. And I found rather than marking it all at one time, it was so much easier to mark one section and cut, and then mark the other section and cut. Now that's not feeling just right there. It feels like it's going the wrong direction maybe. Yeah, I need to go a little further over with that pencil on. It's okay if you make this a little big. You don't really want to make it too small, but if you make it just a little big, it's easy enough to cut down. And then we've got to go from there over to that dot. Now, could you do this with a 12-inch trimmer? Quite possibly. Your lines would probably be a lot better if you do that. But for me, I found that it was almost as easy to do it with my scissors, and I don't say that very often. All right. There we go. So we've got our straight edge up there, and then these edges that are kind of rough cut are going to fall right underneath those lines I put on. And that's why we use the repositionable tape. And I'm going to make sure I get the corners of this and those outside edges really good. And here's where it's going to be a little problem because I pieced, but not a big deal. I'm just going to slide this up, and I'm going to slide this part I just cut right underneath all these lines. Yeah, is that easy? Not really. Could I have found a better way to do it? I don't know. I kept thinking maybe it would be easier if I didn't stick the lines down first, but then I didn't really know where to make the cuts. So, you may discover a better way to do this than I did. And if you do, please share that in the comments, because I would be happy to go back and amend the video if we need to. Now, I want to kind of alternate where the flowers are going to go. So I'm going to do another section of flowers here. And I'm just laying my paper down like I did before. And I'm going to make my lines here and here. But then I'm putting my paper on it fully, evenly. And then I'm feeling where those lines go. And I can feel that where the connections are because of those strips that I've already put in. And again, we're just going to cut from line to dot, whatever, however you choose to do this. And we do want to keep all these extra pieces. And then I'm going to cut from this dot to that dot. And we got another piece ready to go. So again, we pull up our edges. And we're just going to stick this piece of paper right underneath that. And using the repo tape. I don't think that you're going to have to watch me do all of this. This is not going to be one of those quick and fast and easy pages, but I do think you're going to like the effect. Where you have to make a decision, and it ended up the same way on my opposite one, my other one that I did first. I did my patterns alternating, but then I ended up with one square left. Now this was the background square of the background page that I used, so that one was easy enough. I don't really want to leave a white here, and I think I'm okay with just doing another blue here because we don't really have a whole lot of the blue showing up. The problem is going to be, do I have a big enough piece of paper left? And I think we can make that work. Yep. So we're going to cut off this edge, and we're going to piece this right underneath there. And I'm going to put all my tape on this piece for this, on my background area. We're going to slide up those last little pieces. And just slide that under there and then cut it apart, and we'll be done with this. So this is not really an extremely hard technique. It takes a few minutes, but I think the effect of it is really pretty. And that's one thing that several of you have mentioned to me when I've done harder pages. Sometimes we say, oh, we're just going to do the really quick, simple pages. And that's great, but sometimes we do something really hard. We try more in 24, and the effect we get is worth the effort. Now, I feel like for this page, it's going to be worth the effort, especially once I get my pictures on there after Sunday. But look at that. Isn't that a pretty page? Now, all we've got to do is go back and add our frame. I still have a few leftover little pieces, and I'm probably going to have to use those somehow to make a coordinating opposite side, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with that yet. So let's go back and put our frame on, and this layout will be done. I will be teaching this at my in-person event in April, but I wanted to go ahead and practice it, get it up on YouTube, and then my customers who are coming to my in-person event will have a heads up already. And after I teach it in person, if they don't understand it or they want a different look, they can go back and watch the video to reference it again. All right. So there we have a fractured page. This is going to be one of my Easter pages. We did this fractured page with the hexagon from this custom cutting system shapes, the gemstone shapes. So we've got two fractured pages. That one is upside down. But what do you think about the look of those? Something a little bit different, a little fun, I think. And once I get this page completely finished after Easter is over, I may just pop back on one day to show you this because I think it's going to be a stunner. So try you some fractured pages. Let me know how it goes. Somebody mentioned the other day they would like to send me a picture of their page. You can always do that on email. Just attach the photo of your page on email and send that to me because I'd love to see what you're doing. So have fun with your fractured pages, and until next time, happy scrapping.